to call the Village of Midlothian special meeting for February 25th, 2015 to order. Roll call.
Trustee Gillis. Here. Trustee Kreis.
Here.
Trustee Killelly. Here. Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Moskal. Here. Trustee Chevalier. Here. Mayor Ryback.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would like to open the floor to public comment. If you would like to address the board, now would be your time, if there's anybody who would like to address the board.
Helen, 147th Street. Last week, when we spent 3 days with Intel Corporation interviewing residents, business owners, insurance companies, property owners, we participated in lending information about our flooding to be used by Center for Neighborhood Technology. They're working on a flood sensor project for us, so it was a data collecting thing. They were here in December, they're going to be back again next month. We also attended a community resilience workshop in Robbins Monday, a few days ago, which was focused on disaster resilience and flood prevention. CNT, MWRD, Cook County, and residents from 8 neighborhoods attended. We're kind of still hoping that we could see more of our village presence at these meetings because there's a lot of networking involved, and some of our greatest momentum has been gained through some of the contacts we've made in a lot of these meetings. I spoke with someone about the Cook County pump from Homeland Security and Emergency Management at that exact meeting. I'll be sending him files to prove the need to use that specific pump on residential property. I specifically spoke with Gene, the chief of planning, and he wasn't aware of the magnitude of water that reservoirs on the entire blocks in our village until he saw some of the photos I brought with me. So since the village wasn't opting to purchase another pump for us in the last 18 months with any of the grant dollars that became available, we're going to have to prove the need to use that Cook County pump on residential property, as we're going to have another 3 to 4 years of flooding to deal with while we're waiting for the stormwater projects to become complete. Oak Forest is in the process of developing more commercial properties a few hundred feet uphill of the underused Oak Creek Plaza Detention Reservoir. So nobody's here tonight that knows anything about that, I guess. I did email MWRD, IDNR, Army Corps, CNT with the questions concerning those developments. The last thing we need is less permeable surfaces and more watershed coming from that exact area. So what they've done is there's a dialysis center, there's a big hole, couple piles of stones, another property that's assigned with somebody's got something going there, and one right next to it that's for sale or for lease. And it's all within 200 feet of the hole that's not used. So pouring more cement there isn't good for us. I want to know how that's factored into the projects they're planning. And the reason we're still stressing village presence at any and all of the meetings pertaining to flooding and development is because it's an opportunity each time for us to network, to gain awareness, to learn more from what the other communities are doing to solve their problems. And as we're moving towards forming our own steering committee for our own projects in this village, we might benefit from these contacts we've made by inviting them throughout our planning and problem-solving stages. That's it for today, other than I do have a question. If anybody has heard anything on the free rain barrel, if we've had any more news on, are we able to get those without being a direct connect? Because
I can answer that.
great.
Right now, it is still a direct connect. We've been informed through their public relations department that they have in excess of 9,000 rain barrels. So with the amount that they have and the lack of people qualifying, we do anticipate that the requirements are going to change, hopefully in the spring, that will make them available for all residents that don't have the downspout direct connected sewer. So it's just a matter of time before they change the requirements.
Great. Can you tell us who you might have been talking to? Was it
Allison
Ford?
Yeah, Allison Ford.
Okay, thanks.
And she did say, we have our intergovernmental agreement in place, so if something happens, it'll be seamless.
Right. And we do have the information on the website now for the direct connect,
Mhm.
and it will be easily changed once the requirements change, so.
Because people have been contacting me saying, you know, I don't qualify for this, why is it on the website? So I've been kind of just saying that it's in place, and if we can get the program changed over, then it's ready.
Yeah, we're just waiting for them to change it, and I believe it's gonna happen pretty soon.
Actually, I think they have to have all those rain barrels distributed by sometime in 2017. They did, she had sent me an email, so they need to get these things out in the community. So hopefully they're gonna change the program shortly,
Thanks.
and we'll be in line.
Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board? I will close the floor to public comment. We'll move on to trustee business. Trustee Price.
What I would like to discuss with the board tonight is, I received all the documentation that's in your packet from the law firm representing Mr. Submarine about an extension of their Class 8. Now, I have thoughts on this. The village board granted a Class 8 back in 2004 when he purchased the property and renovated it. So I'd like to know what everybody, obviously we're not going to vote on this tonight, but in order to respond to this request, I'd like input from the board.
This is sort of new to me. I have never experienced a renewal of a Class 8. What is the purpose? I mean, obviously, for him to save money, but what would be the benefit for the village to do this?
None.
It would be,
None.
he's not going to invest any additional money in the
Right.
business.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the packet that shows he's gonna.
Everything that he did is done.
Right.
Right.
So what I was going to do, that was pretty much my thought, what I was going to ask him, I will respond to the attorney in a letter, probably me respond to the attorney, and just say, what are their plans for either expansion, job creation, because that's really the only way the board would contemplate an extension of the Class 8. They'd have to give us, is he going to expand the business, is he going to grow the business? Because without some type of additional development plan, I don't, otherwise we'll have everybody knocking on our door for a Class 8.
It seemed like it worked perfectly, for he bought a closed business, he completely gutted it and renovated it and started a new business. It all worked out fine.
Right.
It's odd that he's looking for a renewal.
He wants to save money on his taxes, but doesn't everybody? So,
13 years of safety, 13 years, 12, I think.
11 years, isn't it
11 years, but I think it's 13.
It's 12, okay.
Yeah, so, they tax it pretty well.
So does anybody have a problem with me just asking him, do you have any plans for redevelopment? Otherwise, the board is not, isn't going to consider the request. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay.
Reasonable.
Okay. Bill K. update. Last Wednesday, trustee LaRue and myself, after numerous phone calls and after meeting with the sales manager, we met with Fred Bertucci, who is the general manager. And I thought it was a pretty productive meeting. We were probably there about an hour, Gary. And they are actually interested in moving across the street to the two village-owned parcels, the old Dodge and the old Chrysler properties. So we began the conversation. I think we need to follow up with him. We told him it was in a TIF district. We told him we had applied for enterprise zone status. And I think the conversation went well. We let him know we wanted them to stay in Midlothian. We'd like to grow them in Midlothian. He also expressed an interest about becoming more involved in the community. Gary, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yes, they increased new car sales, more than doubled. They increased it by 200 cars
In a
last
year.
year.
In a year, right.
They love the community, they love the location. They want to stay in Midlothian, but the building is getting too expensive to keep up. They just put tens of thousands of dollars in the HVAC, and it's just not quite fitting the bill. And he, Mr. Bertucci,
says that Mr. K is committed to building a new dealership. He just couldn't tell us when. So I believe they should at least be talked to, again.
So you and I can go pay them a visit again. And Mr. K was not there because he was out of town, otherwise he would have been there. So I thought it was a really productive meeting, but yeah, their store is pretty, if you haven't been in there, it's pretty old and outdated compared to new car dealerships, and they obviously want to sell more cars.
Well, when I had actually talked to Mr. K prior to you guys going to this meeting, maybe about 2 months ago, and he did, once again, he reiterated he wants to stay in the village of Midlothian, he likes it here. He thought he could secure money through Ford Direct to get like a grant to redo his store. And at that time, he was looking for what kind of not Class A, but what tax incentive the village would be willing to give him. And I said, if he wanted to bring us a comprehensive plan, we'd be more than happy to, think about what we could do for him. But I also reiterated with him that the current tax incentive that's on his building and his business has not ran out, and that we still have money that we owe to Vince Domino, and that maybe it would be easier for the board to take if that one was taken care of prior to going on with the new one. So I can reach out to him again. I have his phone number and his direct cell phone number actually, and see if we can set up a meeting for all of us to get together.
It'd be great.
Okay.
And yeah, they need to be part of the process over there, because apparently tonight we're discussing some other people that are interested in the property. And I think Bill K should be kept in the loop and kept in the process.
That's fine.
And maybe if he's aware that there are other players that may expedite things a little bit too.
I think that's why we have to continue the discussion with him. Okay, moving on to Right Way. I had been going back and forth. I had received emails from a Steve Duggan, who is a developer, and initially it was about a Class 8 for Right Way Auto on 145th and Pulaski. And I was providing him with all the information that he requested. Well, then he had indicated that they possibly might be interested in the Cicero Avenue property. It's kind of refreshing to see so many people all of a sudden interested in Cicero Avenue. So the two of the individuals were going to be in from Saginaw, Michigan on Monday. So I had the pleasure of taking them into 14500 Cicero, where we have no utilities, and I had to call Public Works to shovel us into the building. But they looked at that building as well as the old used car lot, 14440. And we were probably over there about an hour. Chase Dickin was the operations manager, and there was another individual, and I don't have his name, from Right Way in Saginaw, or Flint, Michigan, along with their developer. So they looked at both buildings. I told them we had 2 people interested in the properties already. I told them about the water tower. I tried to get everything on the table. I told them it's in a TIF. We applied for enterprise zone status, and so they have a decision to make. Do they want to make an offer on one of those properties? Do they want to do a Class 8? They pretty much led me to believe it's going to be one or the other. They actually wanted demographic information, so I emailed the demographic information that I had put together for the International Council of Shopping Centers back in October, and I sent that to both Mr. Duggan and to Mr. Dickin. And I thank Mr. Dickin for coming and visiting Midlothian and letting me know if there's anything else you need, just contact me. So I think we'll be hearing back from Right Way. They obviously want to expand. They also sell a lot of cars, and they told me that they stand behind their vehicles. So I thought that was pretty positive. As far as the EPA outreach meeting, that is tomorrow evening in this room at 7 p.m. I hope most of you can make it to that meeting. It will be led by Peter Cambreros and Eric Nahu from Weaver Booz, our environmental consultants. Community outreach is an integral part of this grant. So it's really important to get community input. And they're going to cover the TOD and economic development and stormwater, and they want to hear what you have to say. It's really important. We had one of these about a year ago. The PowerPoint presentation from that is on the village's website. But if you've got about an hour tomorrow and you can come out and spend some time and give your input, it's really important. Oh, that was the other thing I had told Right White. All the environmentals are being done on this property. We told Bill Kay that as well. That we're trying to ready, through this US EPA grant, at no cost to the village, that we're trying to do all the phase 1s and phase 2s now to get these properties ready for redevelopment, so that when a developer comes knocking on our door, the environmentals are done at no cost to the developer or to the village. So tomorrow night, we'd all love to spend some more time with you. Our Rain Ready kickoff.
What time is that, Karen?
7 o'clock. Rain Ready kickoff is going to be on March 12th, and I'm not quite sure how I got involved in this. I think, Helen, it was after the Calumet Stormwater Collaborative, and all of a sudden, Harriet emails me 2, 3, 4 times a day. But we have a Rain Ready, we're forming a Rain Ready steering committee, and Jerry, I kind of told you about this, and you're certainly, anybody's invited to be part of this. But the way this is unfolding, we are having a kickoff meeting here in Village Hall at 7 o'clock on March 12th. And CNT will be here, and Army Corps, and they've invited everybody who's been involved. Everybody. They've invited MWRD, they've invited everybody. They're starting to do mapping. We're also putting together a resident steering committee, and Joe Sperry and I are going to be co-chairs. And we're still inviting residents to be part of that committee, Helen is going to be on that committee, and some of her Midlothian people. But Harriet wants it to be not just the Midlothian group. She wants people from all areas of town, people that don't flood. We want to get seniors, we want to get parents, we want to get a cross-section of residents on this committee. So we're putting that together. I believe we're going to meet on a Thursday. I'm going to reach out to the people that will be serving on the committee, whether they want, when do they want to meet, morning, noon, night. That's still to be determined. They're actually working on, as I had indicated, mapping, and they're working on mapping for economic development projects as well. And we have an email from MWRD after Harriet reached out to them that says they will consider some of our plans as part, especially along Natalie Creek with our active transportation plan, as part of their stormwater management plan, which I found very encouraging, because we've got this great active transportation plan. We don't have the money to implement it. And Harriet's been kind of nudging everybody to look at these plans, and if they're going to do work in Midlothian, try to incorporate some of the recommendations in these plans as part of their projects. And she's also stressing the use of green infrastructure. So, I think that's all very positive. We're going to have a lot of meetings, but I think it's another step in the right direction, and I just can't say enough about Harriet, because she just keeps going and going. and now, Cindy, do you know who Cindy is? Cindy Kopp at CNT?
No, I never met.
Okay, well, she's another one of my new best friends, because I've been sending her all of these maps again, and she thanked me because they're doing this mapping project. So, stay tuned, okay? And that's all I have this evening. Just remember tomorrow night, everybody, US EPA, if you've got time.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Schiavone?
Yes. The board recalls about a month ago, I believe it was, when the owner of the property there at 14827 Cicero, Mr. Prado, came in and asked for, well, he originally asked for rezoning, and then the special use and variation and everything else, so he put dormers on his roof. I put, or I don't know if everybody's got here, it's part of the plan here. And the part of the plan, there's 3 pages of it. It's the full architectural drawing is on the board and by the building department. Anyhow, the part that's in yellow is the current house line, roof line, from where the dormers were supposed to come out. Mr. Prado has now presented the village with a plan to replace the second floor in its entirety. So he wants to rip out rip off the roof and the whole floor and then build up and go up from that. He's been stopping in every day, trying to get a permit to do this work from the building department. And the building department hasn't given it because obviously it's against ordinance. So the building department's looking for some direction from the board tonight, to get some idea as to what the board thinks of this. I mean, we gave him permission to put the dormers on. 3 weeks later, he comes back with an architectural drawing for a new second floor in an area which is not permitted.
Shouldn't this go in front of the zoning board?
Well, if they're gonna rezone it, yeah, it has to go back to the thing. And he doesn't seem to grasp this. He thinks that it's, somebody's gonna wave a wand out there and everything's gonna be okay.
I know you had said you were gonna meet with Jeff to see if there was even structurally sound enough to be able to take it.
There's a couple of issues with that. I guess it doesn't meet our standards today. I mean, it met the standards when it was built way back when. But the foundation, so we haven't met with Jeff yet. I don't know if the foundation will hold the extra weight. I guess it's not quite wide enough according to our current codes. So that's where, I want to make the board aware of it, that I don't know what his next step's gonna be, but as of right now, he's not allowed to do it.
I don't see him ever being allowed to do it if it doesn't conform for building codes.
And if we ever thought of, because that's a B3 over there and everything else, if we ever were fortunate enough to get somebody, an entrepreneur who wanted to build one of those buildings where there's condos above and the first floor is businesses, once again, we'd be reversing ourselves again in order to accommodate this gentleman. So I'm looking for input from the board as to how the building department should address it.
Stick with what they originally said. I mean, he does the dormers and that's it, and there's nothing else.
The dormers weren't part of his initial,
Yeah,
they were.
The initial request, and I don't know if you recall or not, is that I told, the zoning board told him that they would okay him to do the work on the dormers, and the height of the dormers was not to exceed the peak of the roof line. And he could build out from there toward the
I
back.
didn't mean the dormers. That actually says he wants to put a whole second floor on.
Right, this whole thing's gonna all disappear.
So
And everything you see above the yellow line,
if he wants to do that, he needs to follow the same process he did initially.
all right,
The only way that would be allowed is if it got rezoned residential.
it would be rezoned residential.
And if it gets rezoned residential, then we kind of,
Well, minimally B1 or 2, which allows living quarters there, but, I mean, yeah, it'd have to be rezoned.
Because I do remember our guidance to him was that he couldn't go higher than the dormers that were there. So now it's throwing a whole different ballgame into it.
Completely off the chart, completely, we decided that, and it's rather elaborate, I don't know if you looked at it or not, spent several $1,000s on getting an architectural plan drawn out. But it's against the ordinance.
I think unfortunately he should have known what it was on for before he bought it. That's the sad aspect of it is that.
He didn't do his homework.
Or his attorney, should come. The realtor he's dealing with has been ducking it altogether and put this man in a poor situation here. All right, I will talk to the building department tomorrow and they can convey the board's thoughts in general. That's all that I have.
Okay, great. Trustee Gillis.
Yes, pending the approval of the ordinance to authorize the sale of the 2 ambulances, we are ready to move on that. We have purchased the ambulance from Naperville. They accepted our offer of $10,000, and we do have a buyer for the second ambulance for $12,000. So we'll be using that $2,000 to get our lettering done and the painting that needs to be done to get our logos done. So that will happen once we authorize the sale tonight, if that happens. I was informed by the chief that we're still waiting on a grant that we did apply for way back when, I believe it was in December, for an ambulance, just to see how we would come out with that. And we are, I believe Deputy Chief Rita is working on a fire prevention grant. So hopefully we'll hear some news on that. Public Works is moving right along. Obviously, I don't know if anybody's seen you out today doing some branch pickup. There's quite a few branches that have been down with the winds we've had lately, so they've been doing that the last couple of days. An update on the garden walk, just a reminder, you can download the registration form on our website. The garden walk is June 20th from 11 to 4. I believe the registration deadline is June 6th. And there's a phone number on the website too that you can contact if you would like to become a member of the garden committee. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee LaRue.
Yes, ma'am. I wanted an update from our last meeting, and she's not here. I can't recall her name, but she was talking about the panhandlers at
Jeannie Guzman.
At Subport and Wendy's, and we talked to the police department, and they're all over it. They know of these individuals. They do pick them up quite often, tell them to move along. What they're requesting is that if the residents see this, to call the police, and in order for anything to really stick legal-wise, they have to actually sign a complaint against this individual. So as much as the police do chase these individuals out of these areas, unless they're actually having a complaint filed and signed against them, there's not too much the police department can do except continue to chase them out of it. But they're aware of it. They knew all the individuals' names. So, and I wasn't surprised. I'm sure I knew they did. But so if somebody told Jamie. Our community policing neighborhood watch group is moving forward with their Easter egg hunt, which is going to be Saturday, April 4th, and on our village green. They are in desperate need of plastic eggs and candy to fill it. We reached out to a neighboring community that holds these things annually, and we were advised that we probably need about 5,000 eggs. We're in receipt of about 460 right now, so we got a long way to go before April 4th. Cheap, sell them by the dozen, I think, at the dollar store for $1. Any help you can muster up would be greatly appreciated, and we'll accept the donations here at Village Hall. So we're hoping to make it a great Easter egg. Hopefully it's going to be a nice day.
No snow.
Another thing, I was asked, Carl Ivan, a resident and very experienced in the IT world and IT contracts, his concern was that a typical contract with a IT company would include they're not allowed to talk about their clients and what happens to their clients, and his concern was that were they allowed to give Midlothian's name in the recent hijacking of one of our police department's computers, because if they weren't, then they are most likely in violation of their contract. I don't know how that happened. I saw his name in the paper giving a quote.
Yeah, and I don't believe at that point he was representing the village. I know he wasn't representing the village of Midlothian, he was representing Revere Consultants. I know it appears that he was speaking for the village, but he was not. He was just saying what had happened here.
Okay.
We had actually been FOIA'd
Okay.
by the Tribune, and we had to get a lot of the information from Calvin to be able to give to the Tribune. And
So the information came from the village, not from
Correct.
Revere?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's good. And then, did you want me to bring up the abatement ordinance?
Sure. Chris, do you want to come up with your recommendation of what we should try to do?
Yeah, it appears to me that this is on the agenda twice, once under your
Yes.
business and once under the president's business. And from what I can tell from this, there's only one difference, and that's whether this is going to be with or without 2010 being levied. I would suggest that we, if it's okay with you, we just move her ordinance and line item here, if you will, up to now, and we can discuss them both, because I think it's really the same discussion.
First thing I gotta say then is the abatement ordinance that I asked to be on the agenda is here in the packet. Unfortunately, the numbers are incorrect. If you follow down all of the levies and the abatements, the amount abated should be $1,310,765, but under the totals, it says 584. You didn't bring down the, basically, you 584 is the one that you'd like to see passed. The one I wanted to pass should say 1,310,765. That was the first bond abatement ordinance in the packet was the one I wanted on the agenda, with all of the bonds being abated except for the 2013 and the Java bond.
Right, and my total has 1,310,000.
No,
Under bond indebtedness, it does, but here on the
Oh,
back
okay.
of the third page, the
That
top.
was just a typo. I apologize, that was a typo on my part. I thought I had corrected everything, so that number would be changed.
That number should read 1,310,765.
3. Okay. I thought I had corrected
My math is
everywhere, the
correct.
numbers, yeah.
Yes.
The number is correct. And then the amount still being levied would be the 343,231.
So being that said, I just believe it's the right thing to do to abate that bond, since there is a revenue stream that the residents are already paying into to pay that bond back. I did take into consideration your email today, this afternoon, which shows the amount in the account now and what we'll be paying in the next year and a half. Unfortunately, it doesn't take into consideration all the revenue we'll be getting in the water surcharge and the gas tax in the next year and a half. So I believe those numbers,
The reason the numbers are what they are is according to the bond document that we all signed and, well, I didn't sign, but that was signed when the bond was issued to the village, it clearly stated is at the time of abatement, all monies for the following year must be in a reserved account, ready to go. I'm just pointing out to you guys that right now, sitting here today, we don't have all the money we need to pay that bond in the next year and a half. And so it would be in violation of your bond ordinance to go ahead and abate without having all the money set aside. You can abate the portion we do have set aside and not abate for a portion of the bond, because we will have some monies set aside for the 726,000. It's just not the 726,000. We basically have about 371,000 set aside. So you could abate that portion of it.
but the revenues will be coming in to cover all of the bond payments. There is a revenue stream that the residents already paid for to pay this bond. And we will have surplus every year, according to the more exact numbers, to pay this bond back. I can't see how we can double tax the residents on this bond. I can't do it, and I won't do it. And that's how I feel about it.
Okay, like I said, I'm just advising you what I read in the bond, 500 pages worth of bonds. And when Tom Dart's office came in, they actually started yesterday. One of the first things they asked for was all the bonds. And the one they concentrated the most on was the 2010. And the issuance of it, the following of it, my staff has been running around crazy trying to provide the documentation they've been asking for. They'll be back out here again yet tomorrow to further investigate what happened with the 2010 bond. Obviously, it was a large amount of money, and there's a lot of discrepancies. In the beginning, when we started pulling paperwork as per Tom Dart's request, my staff very quickly noticed that there was about $2 million worth of bond money that has questionable spending, questionable handling, and like I said, we were told yesterday when they left the office They wanted all the bank statements to go that were affiliated with the bond, and they had read through or really understood what needed to be done. They had asked for the agenda for this evening's meeting and any action on the bond. They asked where we were sitting. I gave them all the documentation I provided to you, so they have exactly what you guys have. I'm hoping that you can see where I'm trying to stay in accordance to the law of the bond. While I understand, yes, we'll continue to collect the money. Already, the village has used over $1 million to pay these bonds in the past. And I've showed you that piece of paper before, prior to getting this far, is that this bond has already taken $1 million away from the village general operating funds.
And while that may be true, it's not the residents' fault that happened.
And I
It's
appreciate
the
it's
village's
not.
fault that happened, it's the
Yes.
village employees' fault that it happened. It is not the residents and business owners of Midlothian's fault or responsibility, and they shouldn't have to cover it. It's up to us to fix that, not them.
Are there any other comments from any of the other board members?
I agree with trustee LaRue. I've spent 2 days going over this. And if there's money missing, well, that's why, or money was misappropriated by former employees, and that's why Sheriff Hart is here. But my suggestion would be, if the revenue stream is not sufficient for some reason, then the board would probably have to revisit the infrastructure fee to make an adjustment. But I agree. I just think that it would be wrong to tax the residents twice. And this board obviously was not provided with all of the information. We did not know about this money, this $1 million.
So the clause in the bond agreement says what again here?
The clause in the bond actually says, and I actually provided it under my business, that all the money should be set aside in an account prior to even considering the abatement of it. Where's the bond sheet? You have it? Yeah. It says it should be in a bona fide debt service fund prior to abatement. If we're considering abating it, we should have it in a bona fide debt service fund. And like I said, right now, we don't have enough in that fund to cover. And it says it is a levied bond.
And we have enough in there to cover the next 2 bond payments. And by the time the third one comes up in the end of 2016, we'll have that money there too. And
That's
it
what
does
we're
get-
hoping. But it's not a guarantee, and like I said, it says it's prior to abating.
Okay, so my question would be, since we're still waiting for financial reports, and you're saying that there's this $1 million that's in question, we could conceivably have enough money, we don't know, that if there was money put into the general fund, that we could take money if we had the financial reports, and there was indeed a surplus, we could take some of that money and put it back into the bond account. I guess that's the other thing, the other unknown that the board doesn't have.
Well, we are going to have to put the money back into the bond. Trust-
Obviously, but without the current financial reports that we've been asking for, it's difficult to know if that money is even there, or what portion of it may be there to put back into the general fund.
Ellen, were you able to share with the rest of the finance committee the most up-to-date financials I shared with you?
I did, so I'm on the file you sent me
Okay.
a week ago.
Those are the most up-to-date.
Well, they're very difficult, and we're still looking for something from Locust.
That is out of Locust, that's straight out of Locust.
It's, the format is hard, though. I had difficulty I had difficulty with that. I'm looking for the.
Just because you don't understand it, Karen, doesn't mean the financial numbers aren't there.
I'm not saying that, Mayor. What I was looking for were the types of reports that we would receive in the past. I do understand the numbers. And I have copies here of reports on the Locust where we could look at the different variances. I don't know, Don and Alan, I just didn't think they were what we were looking for.
We have been trying to come up, the finance committee, or the finance department has been trying to come up with a report that will suit you to the best of your abilities, suit the best of your needs. I am telling you that the reports you have been receiving, that especially the last one, even though the payroll is not distributed throughout the chart, it is accounted for at the bottom. Those are your true financials as the village sits today. And like I said, I'm sorry it's a little difficult for you to read, understand. That was not our intent. We were trying to get you the best qualified numbers we could possibly provide you with. We will continue to try to tweak the reports until the finance committee is happy with them.
I looked at those reports and I did all the adding and subtracting, and it showed that we had a $200,000 a year surplus, not a $1.2 million deficit.
Okay?
So
Then we're
that's
going
what I
to-
took out of those reports.
Okay? That still doesn't cover everything we have to cover. And that doesn't take into consideration raises and expenses. We have been doing everything in our power. The village employees have gone above and beyond trying to save every dime possible. And I commend them for everything they've done. But there's going to come a point where we have to buy something new. We're living from grant dollar to grant dollar. What happens when the grant dollars run out? The state of Illinois has already said that future grants are probably going to be few and far between. So we have to count our blessings that we got this far with what we had, and
So we
you need
shouldn't,
to start planning for the future.
so we shouldn't spend money until we get the money,
What do you mean?
as in the grant money that never came, and,
Oh, that's still coming. That will be here.
but Ron has pretty much said that he's gonna stop.
Those are past grants, they're under review, and I've been told by the bond, or not bond, the grant administrator, that those are going to be honored.
That's good news. We don't know that until it comes.
It will be here. So I guess we'll,
So the situation is that, you know, I guess all the finance committees a little bit confused about what numbers we got. Is that right? I mean, I'm not a CPA, but Mr. Moskal was extremely well qualified to comment on this, would advise us that those numbers weren't,
We don't know still.
right. They weren't complete enough for us to make any judgment on anything. So, I agree with, you know, basically, yeah, the residents shouldn't be taxed twice for what they do. You know, they pay the freight on the surcharge and the gas tax. And so it's wrong, I think, to tax them twice, but on the other hand, we passed something that said that we promised to have that money in the debt service account. Now, I know the board never saw that, the board didn't see that agreement when we passed it, but that's not an excuse, we passed it. So the optimal thing would be to try to understand the numbers of what's going on in the village financial condition, and at the same time, try to find some way of putting enough money in the reserve account that we could abate everything. That Otherwise, as far as as far as I'm concerned, if we do abate this, we are, what are we doing, Mr. Attorney? What are we doing if we abate this, and we're violating the bond agreement, what happens here?
I apologize, I haven't read the bond documents, I don't.
Okay. But it's clear that if we promise to do something, we violated that, it's going to cause issues with some people, maybe SEC, things like that, that could cause us more issues. So, you know, I don't know where you go with that. It's wrong, it's definitely wrong to tax people twice. It's wrong also to violate the law. There is a finance committee meeting on the 7th. 6th? Okay, well,
Can we insert a line and abate something from another line item that's not this bond? We don't have the whole ordinance here, I know, but I'm presuming the abatement ordinance would let us include an abatement for any other line that we have in the whole ordinance.
I would believe that to be
So
correct,
Can we
yes.
solve the problem by not abating this portion of the bond and inserting an abatement for the, I think the right number, $355,000 number instead? We might have to pick more than one line item.
So you're suggesting
So the net,
abating what we can on this right now and then taking the balance and abating something else.
yes. So that the net amount abated stays the same, it's just we don't get in trouble with this particular bond. Because I think we know we will have the money in-house to make the bond payment.
There's nothing to get in trouble, you just, the money, if this is what has to happen, then the money has to come out of the general fund and go into the bond account.
Right.
So we can pay.
But I'm saying for purposes of the abatement ordinance, to keep us out of trouble, can we abate another line item for the same amount instead?
Have to amend the ordinance.
So that we keep the net taxes at the same amount, our residents do not pay twice for the same item. And we don't get ourselves in trouble with the abatement ordinance, or the bond regulations.
Yeah. We don't have the whole ordinance.
I don't like those, I mean, I guess we'd have to go through and pick out one of the lines probably.
I'm not having more of the ordinance.
This is just where you have an abatement, right? But you have to go back to the whole levy and see.
So in other words, that's it deferred to.
No, it doesn't have to be deferred, we can pass it tonight, and as Mayor Ryback has told us, we can amend it up until April.
Correct.
Well, I'd be for amending what, I'd be for debating what we can legally tonight. It won't be $726,000, but whatever we can debate, whatever we can, we have $606,000. So what we can abate $250,000 roughly tonight? Is that what I'm understanding?
According to my figures, you could abate 370,000.
Yes, okay.
We couldn't abate the 606 on that
Well, because,
because of the 234 payment that's due in August?
Correct. You could do the balance after the payment for the 371, 238.30.
So we're back to reducing or abating other line items for $355,000.
Correct.
we can do that next meeting.
Correct.
You can amend it next
We can amend
meeting
Amend
if
the
you want
next
to
meeting,
do
but
that.
at least we.
What is the date we have to have it done by?
We were recommended to, it's got to be done no later than the end of March, and we were recommended to do it at the end of February, beginning of March, just to make sure it's in place.
So Mayor, your figure was 726,700 minus 355, 461, is that how you came up with the figure?
Correct.
Okay,
Or which is the balance after the payment.
right,
Because that's what we have set aside for next year's payments, is $371. That's $371,000.
Oh, yeah.
Can we just pick Alan? You have the, do you have
He
the
has the
entire
ordinance.
ordinance? Okay,
I think
Alan's
that-
very good at this and he might be able to figure this out right now.
Maybe
Or could
we,
we take maybe a 10-minute recess and he could figure it out? Would that help? I don't want to put you under
Chairman,
any pressure.
I think we'll have to pick more than one line, just given the amount.
Mhm.
We can't completely obliterate certain line items. We can't touch pensions. So yeah, I think if we got a couple minutes break, we can probably look and pick some lines and just
Could we
change it on the
take
face.
maybe a recess and do that? Would that make sense?
Okay,
I don't wanna-
I got a motion to recess for 10 minutes.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Trustee Price,
Aye.
trustee Maskell,
Aye.
trustee Gillis. Aye. Trustee Killily.
Aye.
Trustee LaRue,
Aye.
trustee Chevalier.
Aye.
We're in recess.